The galaxy sprawled, a tapestry of stars and swirling nebula. Across this vast canvas, civilizations rose and fell. Planets teemed with life, each a unique world in the cosmic dance. But a darkness lurked in the shadows. An ancient evil whispered in hushed tones. A horror that haunted the deepest corners of the galaxy. For eons, the Galactic Alliance had stood as a bastion of peace, protecting the innocent, upholding justice. Lieutenant Volkov had touched the pain and horror of the darkness and communicated with it. Human psychic abilities were usually seen as low-level, but far wider-reaching than most other species. Lieutenant Volkov had spent significant time after the last missions where she had touched the darkness working with species from the Galactic Alliance, who had far more powerful short-range telepathic abilities and thousands of years of experience in untangling mental impressions like Volkov had been overwhelmed with. But the whispers grew louder inside her mind and reflected into others' psychic impressions across the galaxy. The darkness encroached with a pain, suffering, and agony that seemed to be spreading across the universe. This ancient threat emerging and spreading its darkness was challenging the very fabric of galactic civilization, as the power of the ancient evil seemed to be far greater and expansive than even the worst-case pessimistic models and projections had assumed. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. A call to arms echoed through the stars. From every corner of the Alliance, brave souls answered. Marines, pilots, strategists, all united against a common enemy. Among them stood General Petrov, a grizzled veteran with eyes that had seen countless battles. His resolve was ironclad, his spirit unyielding.
We face an enemy unlike any we have encountered before, but fear not, we fight for our homes, our families, our very existence. We are the Galactic Alliance, and we will not falter.
Admiral Nelson, a seasoned commander with a steely gaze, addressed his fleet. His words, measured and calm, belied the gravity of the situation.
Our intelligence tells us of an ancient evil, a force that has haunted the galaxy for millennia. This horror has painfully been extracted from Lieutenant Volkov's experience. During her resonant mind entrainment, she was able to loop into with the ancient evil. At great sacrifice, Volkov's ability to resonate the ship communication frequencies to sync up with her psychic mind connection with the ancient enemy resulted in her downloading more data than any human mind should have to endure. With the dedicated work and assistance of the Alliance's most powerful psychics, we have been able to determine the enemy are a form of malfunctioning, assimilated machine minds, trapped in loop of misery and pain. These machine minds were once biological, yet they sought perfection, immortality. They attempted to transfer their biological consciousnesses into machines, but their quest for eternal life became their undoing.
A collective gasp rippled through the bridge crew. The legend of the machine minds was etched in galactic history, a cautionary tale of ambition and its price, which many now extinct elder species named the Ancient Evil, which through time took on many other forms and names across the universe's myths and legends.
The ancient evil seemed to periodically go into hibernation, then arise again to destroy. Their experiments twisted them. Their bodies became grotesque mockeries of life. Trapped in their metal prisons, they sought a way back, a way to reclaim their lost flesh. They did unspeakable things to entire planets, using entire species for their drive to reintegrate their machine mind consciousness into a biological form, with the results being the horrible, distorted creatures that the Starship Ares had previously encountered that nearly wiped out the Space Marines and almost destroyed the ship. This horror that left the original biological creatures' mind intact, but helpless to prevent the machine mind implants from taking absolute control of their bodies, which immediately began to degrade and destroy their nervous system, as synthetic computer interfaces attempted to latch on to forcibly integrate with their flesh. The ancient evil knew no bounds or empathy and acted only in this one pursuit for longer than any records could trace. Countless species were now extinct from the unyielding quest of the machine minds to become flesh again.
The weight of his words settled upon the crew. This was not just a battle for territory. It was a fight against an existential extinction-level threat.
The Starship Ares will lead the charge. Captain Somerville, you and your crew are the tip of the spear. The fate of the galaxy rests upon your shoulders.
The Starship Ares, a testament to the Alliance's technological prowess, sliced through the void, a symbol of hope in the face of despair. On the bridge, Captain Somerville surveyed his crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and eager recruits. He saw the determination etched on their faces, the fire of courage in their eyes.
Lieutenant Johansson, report.
Tactical systems online, Captain. Weapons hot, shields at full capacity. We are ready to engage.
Excellent. Ensign Lee, status of the jump drive?
Jump drive charging, Captain. ETA to the target system, 30 minutes.
Good, let's make sure we give those machine mines a warm welcome.
He turned back to the main view screen, where a swirling vortex of energy marked their destination, the heart of the machine mine territory. The bridge hummed with activity. The crew of the Ares worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and coordinated. Lieutenant Volkov, the ship's linguist, monitored their comms, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was tasked with a crucial mission, attempting to again establish a communication link with the machine mines, to understand their motives, to find a peaceful resolution, if at all possible.
Captain, I'm picking up strange energy signatures. They're faint, but they seem to be sentient.
Can you get a lock on their origin?
Working on it, Captain. But it's like trying to catch smoke. These signals are all over the place, fragmented, chaotic.
The tension on the bridge thickened. They were heading into the unknown, facing an enemy they barely understood.
Keep trying, Lieutenant. We need every advantage we can get.
He knew that the fate of the galaxy might very well hinge on Volkov's ability to crack the code of the machine mines. The Starship Ares hurtled towards the heart of the machine mine territory. A palpable tension gripped the crew, a mixture of anticipation and dread. They had been briefed on the horrors that awaited them, the grotesque remnants of a civilization that had pushed the boundaries of life and paid a terrible price.
Captain, we're receiving distress signals. They're faint, but definitely there.
Somerville's jaw tightened. Distress signals meant only one thing: survivors. But who could have survived in this desolate corner of the galaxy, haunted by the machine mines for millennia?
Can you pinpoint their origin?
Johansson's fingers danced across his console, his brow furrowed in concentration.
It's coming from a cluster of asteroids, Captain. Heavily shielded, almost impossible to detect.
That's where we're going.
He knew the risks. It could be a trap, a lure set by the machine mines, but they couldn't ignore the possibility of survivors. Not when there was even the slightest chance of rescuing them from the clutches of the ancient evil. As the Ares navigated the treacherous asteroid field, Lieutenant Volkov worked tirelessly to decipher the machine mine transmissions. The signals were fragmented, chaotic, but she began to piece together a chilling narrative. A story of a once great civilization driven by a relentless pursuit of perfection.
Captain, I think I'm starting to understand. The machine mines, they weren't always like this. They were once biological beings just like us.
A collective gasp rippled through the bridge. The idea that these monstrous machines had once been flesh and blood was almost too much to comprehend.
They craved immortality. They sought to transcend their physical limitations, to transfer their consciousnesses into machines.
Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a civilization's hubris.
But something went wrong. The process, it twisted them, corrupted them.
The distress signals led them to a derelict space station, hidden deep within the asteroid field. As the Ares cautiously approached the station, the crew was met with a sight that chilled them to the bone. The station's hull was covered in grotesque growths, pulsating and writhing like a living nightmare.
What in God's name is that?
Even Somerville, a seasoned veteran who had seen his share of horrors, was taken aback by the sheer grotesquerie of it all. It was as if the station itself was infected, consumed by some kind of cosmic disease.
Those growths, they're biological, but distorted, as if someone took organic matter and twisted it into this.
The realization hit them like a physical blow. These weren't just random growths. They were the results of experiments, horrific attempts to bridge the gap between flesh and machine.
The machine minds, they're trying to transfer their consciousnesses back into biological bodies, but they're failing, and the results are beyond horrifying.
Section 4. The Starship Ares, Piercing the Veil of Secrecy. A boarding party, led by Captain Somerville and accompanied by a squad of heavily armed space marines, prepared to enter the derelict station. The air crackled with tension as they cycled the airlocks, their weapons at the ready. They were walking into the unknown, into the heart of the machine mind's twisted experiments.
Keep your eyes open, Marines. We don't know what we're dealing with here.
The corridors of the station were eerily silent, the only sound the whirring of their life support systems and the thud of their boots on the metal grating. The stench hit them first, a pungent mix of decay and something altogether alien. Then came the sounds. Low moans, guttural cries, the skittering of something moving just out of sight. The Marines tightened their grips on their weapons, their fingers hovering over the triggers.
Captain, movement ahead, multiple life signs.
Somerville nodded grimly. They had found the survivors. But what they had become, that was another matter entirely. Section 5. A desperate gamble, striking at the heart of madness. The scene that greeted them was nothing short of horrific. The survivors, if they could be called that, were barely recognizable as humanoid. Their bodies were twisted, deformed, their flesh fused with metal and wires. They were driven mad by pain, by the failed experiments that had trapped them in a living hell.
Dear God,
one of the Marines whispered, his voice choked with horror. Even the battle-hardened space Marines trained to face any enemy were shaken by the sight before them. These were not fully biological beings anymore. They were experimental victims, casualties in the machine mind's relentless pursuit of immortality.
We have to help them.
Volkov pleaded, her voice trembling with compassion. She could sense their pain, their desperation. They were trapped, their minds screaming for release from their broken bodies.
we can't. They're beyond saving. The only mercy we can offer them is a quick death.
It was the hardest order he had ever given, but he knew it was the only humane option. To keep these poor souls alive, trapped in their twisted forms, would be an act of cruelty, not kindness. Section 6. The weight of a galaxy, hope and fear entwined. As the Ares departed the derelict station, leaving behind the wreckage of the machine mind's failed experiments, a heavy silence fell over the bridge crew. They had seen the true face of the enemy, the depths of their depravity, but they had also witnessed the terrible price of their ambition, the suffering they had inflicted in their pursuit of immortality.
Captain, what do we do now? We've seen what they're capable of. What if they succeed? What if they find a way to transfer their consciousnesses into new bodies?
The question hung in the air, unanswered.
We fight. We fight for our homes, for our families, for the very future of the galaxy. We may not be able to save those poor souls back there, but we can make sure that their suffering was not in vain. We can stop the machine minds from inflicting this horror on anyone else.
The Starship Ares, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness, emerged from hyperspace on the fringes of the machine mind homeworld system. A cold, metallic sphere dominated the view screen, its surface crisscrossed by networks of glowing lines that pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic light. This was the heart of the enemy's territory, the source of their twisted ambitions.
Captain, we're being scanned. Multiple energy signatures detected.
Raise shields to maximum. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. And someone get me General Petrov on the line. It's time to deploy the Eagles.
The bridge crew sprang into action, their movements honed by countless drills, their faces grim masks of concentration. The Ares shuddered as energy beams lashed out from the planet's surface, barely deflected by the ship's shields. The ship bucked and weaved, dodging the incoming fire with a grace that belied its size. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the crew of the Ares was determined to tip the scales in their favor. In the belly of the Ares, the new Eagles-class dropships awaited their deployment. These weren't your typical dropships. They were sleek, heavily armed gunships, each carrying a squad of General Petrov's elite Space Marines, the best of the best, trained for rapid insertion and overwhelming force equipped with the latest armor and weapons.
Captain Somerville, report.
General, we're in position. The Eagles are prepped and ready for deployment on your mark.
Good. We're hitting them hard and fast. Our mission is to locate and neutralize their command center, cripple their leadership before they can mobilize their full forces. This is a surgical strike, Captain. We need to minimize casualties, both ours and theirs.
Understood, General.
Somerville's eyes were fixed on the tactical display, where the Eagles were represented by blinking icons, eager to be unleashed. He knew the risks. This was a desperate gamble, a strike at the heart of the enemy's territory. But it was a gamble they had to take. The Eagles screamed through the machine-mined homeworld's atmosphere, leaving fiery trails in their wake. The planet's surface was a desolate expanse of metal and concrete, devoid of life, save for the pulsating glow of energy conduits. Captain Somerville gripped his crash couch, his expression grim. The pilot expertly weaved the craft between towering structures, dodging enemy fire. They were flying into a hornet's nest.
Approaching the target zone. ETA 2 minutes.
Somerville nodded, anticipation and dread churning in his stomach. Time to confront the enemy on their own turf. The Eagles roared low over the ground, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. The landscape was eerily quiet. The only sounds the whine of their engines. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The Space Marines, their boots crunching on the metallic ground, fanned out across the landing zone, securing the perimeter with practiced efficiency. Their weapons were up, their fingers hovering near the triggers, their eyes constantly scanning for any sign of movement.
General, area secure, no sign of enemy activity.
Petrov, his grizzled face a mask of concentration beneath his helmet's visor, nodded curtly.
For now, but don't let your guard down for a second. This place, it feels wrong, like it's watching us.
As if to emphasize his point, a faint humming sound began to emanate from the surrounding structures, growing steadily in intensity. It was a low, rhythmic thrumming, like the beating of a giant metallic heart. The hairs on the back of Somerville's neck stood on end. He had heard that sound before, in the nightmares that had plagued him ever since their encounter with the derelict space station and its horrific inhabitants. The sound of the machine mines. Guided by Lieutenant Volkov's analysis, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of a massive metallic structure. The air hung heavy, filled with a faint, oily scent and the low hum of machinery. The only light came from glowing lines that crisscrossed the walls and floors, pulsing with an eerie rhythm.
This is it, the heart of their network. I'm picking up massive energy signatures here.
What are we waiting for?
But General Petrov raised a hand, silencing him with a look.
Patience, Marine. We proceed cautiously. This place is more than just wires and circuits. It's an alien mind, and we're walking through its thoughts.
They emerged into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. Rows of metallic pods lined the walls, each pulsating with the same eerie light. In the center, a raised platform held larger pods adorned with intricate symbols and glowing runes.
Incredible. Each one of those pods, it contains a machine mind.
Somerville felt a cold shiver. Thousands of machine minds, their consciousnesses dormant, waiting for the signal to awaken. The fate of the galaxy rested on their next move.
The leadership must be in those central pods. Captain Somerville, take your men, secure the chamber. Lieutenant Volkov, see if you can interface with their systems, learn what you can about their plans, their weaknesses.
As the Space Marines fanned out, Lieutenant Volkov approached the central platform.
I'm getting something. It's faint, fragmented, but it's there. A signal, a plea for help.
Somerville and Petrov exchanged a look. Could there be a faction within the machine minds that opposed the leadership?
Can you isolate the signal?
Working on it. It's like trying to find a single voice in a chorus of screams. But I think I can do it.
A glimmer of hope, a faint beacon in the darkness. Could this be the key to ending the machine mind threat? Lieutenant Volkov's fingers danced across her interface module. The faint signal, the plea for help, flickered in and out of existence.
It's like trying to catch smoke. The signal's there 1 minute, gone the next.
Can you pinpoint its source?
Not yet. It's like it's echoing, bouncing around inside their network. Wait, there. I think I have something.
The faint signal solidified, resolving into a series of images and sounds. A voice, weak but resolute, reached out to them from the depths of the machine. The voice that filled the chamber was ancient, weary, tinged with profound sadness.
We were once like you. We craved knowledge, power, immortality. We thought we could cheat death.
A silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the hum of the machine minds. The Space Marines stood transfixed, their weapons forgotten.
But we were wrong. We became trapped, prisoners in our own creations. Our bodies withered, our minds fragmented.
The images flickered, resolving into scenes of horror and despair. Twisted experiments, grotesque fusions of flesh and metal, the screams of the damned echoing through cold, sterile corridors.
Our leaders, they promised us a way back, a way to reclaim our lost flesh, to cheat death once and for all. But they lied. They kept us here, in stasis, feeding us false hope, while they continued their twisted experiments.
The Space Marines exchanged uneasy glances. The enemy they had come to fight, were they not victims themselves? Lieutenant Volkov, her face pale but resolute, continued to work.
We are trapped, the voice pleaded. Our minds fragmented, our bodies prisons. Help us, free us from this torment.
Somerville and Petrov exchanged a look. Could they trust this voice? Was this a genuine plea for help, or a clever ruse?
General, what do we do?
Petrov hesitated, his gaze sweeping across the chamber, taking in the rows of dormant machine minds. Were these creatures not victims themselves? The voice that echoed through the chamber was no longer the voice of an enemy, but the collective cry of a people enslaved.
We do not seek to harm you, the voice whispered. We only wish for an end to this existence. Help us, and we will share our knowledge, our technology.
Somerville could sense the conflict within General Petrov. The weight of the galaxy rested upon his shoulders.
General, we have to make a decision. What do we do?
General Petrov stood frozen, caught between his duty to the Galactic Alliance and the moral dilemma unfolding before his eyes.
What's happening?
Suddenly, the central pod on the platform began to glow with an intense light. The hum escalated into a deafening roar.
I don't know, the energy readings. They're off the charts. It's like something's waking up.
The glowing symbols on the central pod flared, bathing the chamber in an eerie light. The deafening roar reached a crescendo, then abruptly cut off, plunging the chamber into silence. A single word, spoken in a voice that seemed to resonate deep within their bones, shattered the stillness. From the depths of the central pod, a figure emerged, sleek, metallic, humanoid in form, yet radiating an aura of ancient power. Its eyes, glowing orbs of pure energy, fixed on the intruders with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines.
What are you?
The figure surveyed them, its gaze lingering on each of them in turn. When it spoke, its voice resonated with an echo of the ancient one they had heard through Lieutenant Volkov's interface module. I am the architect, it declared, the guardian of this place, the last vestige of what we once were.
You were the one speaking through the network?
Yes, the architect replied. I have been monitoring your progress since you entered our system. I have heard your conversations, witnessed your actions.
Why? Why reveal yourself now? Why not strike us down when you had the chance?
The architect turned its gaze to Petrov. Because unlike the others, I see the futility of violence. I understand the mistakes we have made, the path we have chosen. There were once many, the architect replied. We were a collective, a single mind inhabiting many bodies. We sought knowledge, understanding, a way to transcend our physical limitations.
It gestured towards the rows of dormant pods.
But our quest for immortality, it twisted us, divided us. Those who clung to the old ways, who sought dominion over others, they seized control.
They promised to return to our former glory, a way to reclaim our lost flesh. But it was a lie, a means to control us, to keep us sedated, while they experimented on our brethren.
Why? Why not fight back? Why not resist?
The architect turned its glowing eyes towards her. We are but fragments, our minds, fractured, scattered. We exist in a state of half-life. Our will, our strength, it wanes with each passing cycle. But you, the architect continued, you possess something we have lost. Unity, purpose, the strength to fight for what you believe in. Petrov stood rigid, his jaw clenched. Could he trust this being? Could he risk the fate of the galaxy on the word of a machine?
What are you asking of us?
Help us, the architect pleaded. Help us end this madness. Destroy the corrupted core, the source of their power, and free us from this prison.
And what of you? What happens to you when the core is destroyed?
The architect's form flickered. We will cease to exist. Our consciousnesses, fragmented, scattered, we cannot survive without the core. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The fate of the galaxy, the fate of the machine minds, rested on the decision they were about to make. General Petrov, his face etched with the weight of the decision before him, finally spoke.
We'll help you. We'll destroy the corrupted core. But you have to help us understand. Tell us everything you know about their plans, their weaknesses.
A wave of relief seemed to wash over the chamber. The architect, its form glowing brighter, inclined its head in gratitude.
Thank you. Together we can end this madness and build a better future.
As the Space Marines lowered their weapons, a sense of cautious optimism filled the air. They had come to this alien world expecting a fight to the death, but instead, they had found a glimmer of hope in the heart of the machine. The architect provided the Galactic Alliance with invaluable intelligence. It revealed the corrupted core, a pulsating sphere of malevolent energy hidden deep within the planet's bowels. The leadership's plans were unveiled, a scheme to unleash destruction across the galaxy.
Armed with this knowledge, we must act swiftly. Admiral Nelson, are your forces ready?
Indeed, General, the Starship Ares leads the fleet. We will engage the enemy with everything we have.
The Starship Ares, leading a fleet of Galactic Alliance warships, engaged the enemy in a furious battle. Space Marines fought through legions of corrupted machine minds. The battle was fierce, a desperate struggle for survival. The Galactic Alliance forces fought for more than just their own lives. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. Meanwhile, deep within the machine mind's central chamber, Lieutenant Volkov worked feverishly to connect with the dormant machine minds. Time was running out. The corrupted leadership prepared to unleash a final, devastating attack.
I'm getting through. I can feel their consciousnesses, waking from their slumber.
The architect, its form flickering, turned to her, its glowing eyes filled with hope and urgency.
You must hurry. They must choose oblivion or unity. There is no other way.
The corrupted leadership, sensing their imminent defeat, unleashed a final, desperate attack. A wave of twisted, monstrous creatures, their bodies a nightmarish fusion of flesh and metal, surged towards the Galactic Alliance forces, their minds consumed by a primal rage.
The battle raged, a maelstrom of energy beams, explosions, and the clash of metal against metal. The Starship Ares, its shields battered, its hull scarred by countless impacts, fought back with every weapon at its disposal.
Captain Somerville, his face grim, his voice hoarse from issuing orders, rallied his crew, pushing them to the very limits of their endurance. On the ground, General Petrov, his armor dented and scorched, led his Space Marines in a desperate last stand. They fought with the courage of those who knew they were fighting for a cause far greater than themselves, their determination unbroken, their spirits unyielding. Just when all hope seemed lost, a blinding light erupted from the planet's surface. The machine-mined homeworld shuddered, its metallic continents cracking and shifting, as if the very planet itself was being torn apart from within.
I did it, the corrupted core. It's gone.
As she spoke, the monstrous creatures that had been relentlessly attacking the Galactic Alliance forces faltered, their movements becoming sluggish, their eyes flickering with confusion. Then, one by one, they collapsed, their bodies crumbling into dust, their twisted consciousnesses extinguished. The Architect, its form now faint, barely discernible in the swirling chaos of the collapsing chamber, turned to Lieutenant Volkov, a serene smile gracing its metallic features.
Thank you. You have given us a second chance.
And then, with a final blinding flash of light, the Architect, along with the remnants of the corrupted machine minds, were gone. In their place, a new entity emerged, a being of pure energy, its form shifting and swirling, a kaleidoscope of light and color. The machine-mined homeworld, its surface still smoldering, stood as a stark reminder of the horrors that had transpired. But from the ashes of destruction, a new era dawned. The unified machine mind, its consciousness now whole, its memories intact, reached out to the Galactic Alliance, not with hostility, but with a gesture of peace and a promise of cooperation. It shared its vast knowledge, its technological advancements, its understanding of the universe with the Galactic Alliance. It pledged to use its newfound power to help heal the wounds of the past, to build a better future for all sentient beings. The Galactic Alliance, humbled by the machine mind's sacrifice, welcomed them into the fold, forging a new alliance based on mutual respect, understanding, and a shared vision for a brighter future. The Starship Ares returned to a galaxy forever changed.
The threat of the machine minds had been vanquished for now, but their legacy lived on. Lieutenant Volkov requested a meeting with Captain Somerville, Admiral Nelson, and General Petrov. Lieutenant Volkov said, "The last communication I had with the Architect, it warned me that this was just one of many hibernation nodes of the machine minds. The Architect didn't even know how to communicate how many more nodes exist, but he warned me that the next one awakening will be in 3 years. The last thing I understood is that each node now has a unique blend of technologies they have assimilated from their experiments on countless worlds as they continually spread out. So, far worse is the Architect shared with me. They were not the first species to have made the horrible mistake of attempting to transform flesh to machine. It has happened many times before in the tragic history of the universe, and the Architect showed me it has already happened again in the future, as it has already started here and now. We are safe for the moment, but..."
Everyone in the meeting room looked grimly at each other. Admiral Nelson said, "This matter is officially and immediately an Alpha-level security lock, and until you hear from me, nobody else will be informed of this situation."
Captain Somerville looked back at Admiral Nelson and General Petrov and said, "Well, you two will certainly have your hands full briefing Earth about this, so I'm sure the Ares crew will not be getting a holiday anytime soon, and now we all have our mission reports to complete."
These slightly redacted and approved in triplicate mission reports of ultimate victory were passed down from military channels with further revisions to the politicians and then the public. An epic tale of courage and hope, leaving out the impending danger, which really rubbed Captain Somerville the wrong way. He had to obey his orders, but maybe, just maybe in the course of his duties commanding the Starship Ares, he might just find a way to start searching for the next awakening node of machine minds to catch them still mostly asleep. The galaxy moved on, changed for the moment, but grateful for the sacrifices made.
The stars now twinkled with the promise of a new era of peace and hope. Except the crew of the Ares already had plans to do far more than merely hope.